the Choose Recovery Kickoff celebration. We are celebrating. My name is Arlene, and I'm a Christian in recovery from drugs and alcohol and codependency. Hello. I have already discussed that anything I say is now anticlimactic because we have had beach balls. So there, it's all over right now. For those of you who are new here, maybe you're coming in on the middle, you feel like maybe you're coming in on the middle of our conversation here. Let me just tell you that for 18 years here at Grace Church, we've had this thriving and healing Friday night recovery program, and we've called ourselves Celebrate Recovery. For the first 15 years or so of it, we followed the Celebrate Recovery format pretty closely, although we do tend to be a rebellious lot from time to time. We would stray. But now for the last 3 years or so, we've explored so many different lessons and formats and leadership styles that vary from the Celebrate Recovery program. But we've still been calling ourselves Celebrate Recovery, which pretty much totally lacked integrity on our parts because we weren't actually being a Celebrate Recovery, and that didn't seem like a very good recovery thing to do. So this coming year, we want to go forward with complete integrity, and so we're calling ourselves what? There it is. We want everyone to know that if you've been receiving healing on Friday nights here at this place, that nothing you have experienced here will change about that. That's all the same. Jesus is going to keep right on healing. Say, yeah. And we still love Celebrate Recovery. Celebrate Recovery is great. In fact, we'll be using lots of Celebrate Recovery materials and references, except for some Celebrate Recovery trademarked stuff that we're going to change for, like I said, integrity purposes. So the name change, just letting you know, is simply catching up with changes that have already happened already. Different packaging, same great taste. If we were a breakfast cereal, that's what we would say. So welcome to Choose Recovery. Today is the kickoff of a new and exciting thing that is an old, exciting thing. And no matter what we call ourselves, recovery through Jesus is exciting. So, I'm going to let you in on, kind of what was going on around here. When the leadership team of Celebrate Recovery was messing around with ideas of what to call ourselves, and we decided on Choose Recovery, right? But that meant that we had to wrestle with the concept of choice. Because we do believe that recovery is a choice. Recovery is a choice. Do you think recovery is a choice? Yeah. But choice is an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing. It's a word we have to wrestle with because in recovery, there are some things that we have a choice over, and there's some things that we don't have choice over. And I've discovered, at least in my recovery program, that it's really important to know which is which, to know the difference, which is which. For instance, let's say you smoked your whole life and ended up with lung cancer. Did you have a choice over getting lung cancer? Now, it might be easy to say yes, right? I mean, come on, you smoked your whole life and you got lung cancer, duh, right? It might be easy, except when you figure in the many people who smoked their whole life and didn't get lung cancer, right? Or the many people who never ever smoked a cigarette in their life and got lung cancer. So did you choose to get lung cancer because you smoked? Well, it's hard to say, right? Sometimes these things are difficult to figure out. So choice is a tricky word. What does choice mean for those of us in recovery? Now, I'm a Christian in recovery from drugs and alcohol and codependency. And what that means is that when I was drinking and using alcohol and drugs, that I spent a lot of my time trying to control my drinking alcohol and using drugs. I thought I had some choice in the matter of whether I drank or whether I used. But at the end there, I got to tell you, I was sort of like someone rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Because in actuality, I had lost my power of choice over using drugs and alcohol. The ship was going down, no matter how pretty I tried to arrange things. And it was only when I saw that no matter what my lips said they wanted, or what my mind thought that I wanted, or what my spirit longed for, or even what my will insisted upon, I still had no choice over putting drugs and alcohol in my body. Only then that I knew the real despair of hopelessness. I simply couldn't control my drinking and using. Hopelessness, if you're filling in the blanks of your worship folder, which I hope you are, open it up, grab a pen. Hopelessness means having no choices. Hopelessness means having no choices. Now, I know that you friends out there understand hopelessness the way I understand it. I know you understand it because you're here. We're all here because we're not all there. We all share the common bond of pain together. We're all here. Now, I know that you have felt that utter inability to stop your addiction. By the way, while you have your notes open, fill in the blank for what an addiction is. An addiction is an unhealthy use of a substance with an inability to stop it. That's an addiction. If you've understood the hopelessness of not being able to stop using a substance, alcohol, drugs, food, smoking, say yeah. Yeah, me too. And I also know that many of you, like me, have felt hopeless over an affliction in our life, something we've been afflicted with. Fill in the blank as to what an affliction is. An affliction is something we didn't cause, but it causes us suffering nonetheless, right? So if you've suffered afflictions like abuse or abandonment or codependency, divorce, relationship issues, anger, depression, fear, pride, unforgiveness, and you know the hopelessness of that, say yeah. Yeah. And finally, I know that many of us here tonight have been hopeless to stop our compulsive behaviors. Fill in the blank of what a compulsive behavior is. A compulsive behavior is the continued return to a harmful behavior with an inability to stop it. You know, for many of us, things like gambling, cutting, workaholism, control, relationship addiction, sex addiction, shopping, many of these things had us completely beat. We lost the power of choice over this stuff. If some of this is you, say yeah. Yeah, yeah. See, over our addictions and afflictions and compulsive behaviors, we have no choice. I mean, if we had a choice over these things, we would have stopped them long ago, right? Duh. But we couldn't. And why? Because those things were our weakness. A blind person can will themselves to see all they want, but they'll still be blind. They can hope, they can try, they can plead, they can pretend, but they still won't be able to see. It's a weakness. We in recovery have what the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous describes as a devastating weakness. Whether we came here with an addiction, affliction, or a compulsive behavior, it has become a weakness that was devastating our lives. In the Bible, Jesus had a follower named Paul who had a devastating weakness. Paul was a respected Jewish religious elder. He was a Pharisee. He started off hating this little cult that followed Jesus, these Christ followers. And then, lo and behold, ended up following Jesus himself, and in fact was one of the greatest evangelists of all times. You know, Paul was the guy who ended up spreading the good news of Jesus' love and grace all through the ancient known world. So if you're sitting here today and you're a little cynical about the following Jesus thing, just think you could end up being like Paul. I never thought I'd end up being a pastor, so just keep coming back. You never know. I don't know if that's a threat or a promise. I'm not sure which. But Paul had a devastating weakness. In fact, he talks about it in one of his letters to one of his new churches he formed in a town called Corinth. Read Paul's experience with me from 2 Corinthians 12, 7 through 8. Go. But I must not be too proud of the wonderful things that were shown to me. So a painful problem was given to me, an angel from Satan sent to make me suffer so that I would not think that I am better than anyone else. I begged the Lord 3 times to take this problem away from me. Can anyone relate to Paul with me? Has anyone here experienced suffering from your addiction, affliction, or compulsive behavior? I mean, nobody knows what Paul suffered from exactly. There's all kinds of speculation about it, but the fact was that it was a problem, and he totally believed it came from the devil himself, and that's pretty clear. And he begged God to take it away from him. Can you relate to that? Have you ever begged God to take it away? I know that there were times even before I believed in God. I was like, okay, God, if you're out there, can you please take away the depression, the obsession, the obsessive behaviors? Have you ever prayed, take away my obsession with food or sex or another person, whatever? See, Paul understood how it felt to have a devastating weakness. He had no choice over it. And when it came to choice, we have no choice over controlling our weaknesses either. And that is hopelessness. Hopelessness means having no choice. And yet there's hope. We're not left without hope. And that's why we're here today, because hope is possible. Now, if you have found new hope from the devastating weakness of your addiction, affliction, or compulsive behavior, make a little noise tonight. Because hope means having a choice. Hope means having a choice. Because we are completely capable to make a choice that will change our lives. We can choose recovery, which is different than choosing to fight our addictions and afflictions and compulsive behaviors head on, which doesn't work. That's why just say no doesn't work. It doesn't work. It didn't work for Paul, and it surefire doesn't work for us. So if choosing recovery isn't just choosing to fight our addictions, afflictions, and compulsions head on, what is it? What is choosing recovery? Well, that's what the rest of this is going to be about. Here's what choosing recovery means. Now let's define the word choice in our context of recovery. For us, choosing recovery means that first we choose to receive grace and power that we don't have from God. That's the first of what we like to call the 5 essentials of recovery. So the first and most important choice is to choose, say it with me, Jesus, trust him, right? Read with me what Paul continues to say about how he can handle his devastating weakness. 2 Corinthians 12, 9 through 10. I think he can help teach us. Go. But the Lord said, my grace is all you need. Only when you are weak can everything be done completely by my power. So I will gladly boast about my weaknesses. Then Christ's power can stay in me. Yes, I am glad to have weaknesses if they are for Christ. I'm glad to be insulted and have hard times. I am glad when I am persecuted and have problems, because it's when I am weak that I am really strong. It was Jesus who gave the grace and power to Paul. And it's Jesus who gives these things to us. The first and foremost choice we can make in our hopeless state of weakness is to choose to trust Jesus, who will not remove our weakness, hear me, but will be strong in our stead. This is an important thing to remember about choice. We don't become strong. I am now and will always be weak when it comes to my drug addiction and alcoholism. But there is one who is strong, who stands in the gap of my weakness, and he can and he will do the same for you if you ask him. So the first of the 5 essential actions we take to choose recovery is to surrender and trust Jesus. And it's out of that first choice that flows a perfect program of recovery for those of us who are weak. See, Jesus gives us more recovery choices as we cling to him in hope. Now, some of you might be on the fence about this Jesus thing. Some of you might be sitting here and saying, man, the beach balls were all great and everything, and the music is great, but now you're going to talk about Jesus. Listen, I want to encourage you not to take yourself out of the running when it comes to recovery just because you're on the fence about Jesus, okay? The fact is that God is very patient and he's extremely gracious. In my own recovery process, I chose to follow the last 4 essentials that we're going to talk about shortly. And in following those, God actually led me through a backwards path towards trusting Jesus. So give yourself a break if swallowing this Jesus thing is hard for you. And remember that there are 4 other essentials that you can throw yourself into choosing as you choose your recovery. Work these, let the Jesus thing work itself out, because it will. So let's say the second essential together. Go. Number 2, 12 steps, work them. Fill in the blank, 12 steps. To choose recovery means we're choosing a way of life that includes not fighting off our addictions, afflictions, compulsions straight on, but by digging deep to discover the things in ourselves that have contributed to our problems. The 12 steps are God-given. When you read your Bible, you're going to find that they actually come from the wisdom of Scripture. Not only that, they're common sense. So when we choose recovery, it means we choose a way of life that includes working the 12 steps to navigate us through the root of our troubles. Working through these 12 steps is the action that we can take when we choose recovery. Here's the third essential. Read it with me. Sponsor, get one. Okay. So when we choose recovery, it isn't a choice to be solitary. It's not just Jesus and me. It's a choice to enter into community and relationship with other humans on the same path that we're on. You know, I think for some of us, the hardest thing about entering recovery is the fear of giving up our extreme individualism, right? We tend to be individualistic. We think we have to figure it all out ourselves. We have to make our own decisions. We have to always be in control. We have to know everything. And sometimes fear can make us very, very stubborn about this, stepping out of that and sharing life with other people. But the fact is that no person is actually an island. Each of us needs a human guide. So a sponsor is somebody who has walked the same recovery path that you're trying to walk and can lead you through the rough terrain. And they're also the ones who are going to walk you through the 12 steps, so that's convenient. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that they don't need a sponsor. But if you don't get a sponsor, it means you're sponsoring yourself. And as one of my friends once told me, although I'm using different words, I realized I was sponsoring myself and my sponsor was an idiot. More likely, though, another argument, a more popular argument I've heard against finding a sponsor is somebody will say that Jesus is the only sponsor that they'll ever need. They don't need a human. Okay, we're going to put an end to this one. Here's the deal. Jesus is our Savior, okay? Our sponsor is our sponsor. Got it? Two completely different roles. Right? Jesus is the great physician, but we still go to our primary care doctor to get advice on what to do about our health. Our primary care doctor is the human voice of reason about our health, even though Jesus has created us. We're getting it now? Our sponsor is the human voice of reason about our recovery. Without a sponsor, it's really easy to fool ourselves about what we're hearing from Jesus or our own wishful thinking. So we're going to be talking a lot of this coming year about how to get a sponsor and how to be on the lookout in the future for sponsorship trainings and the like. Here's the fourth essential to choose recovery. Say it with me. It's on the screen. Meetings. Attend them. Okay, what's up about the meetings? Nowhere in the Bible does it say, Pastor Arlene, nowhere in the Bible does it say to go to 12-step recovery meetings. Okay. Yes, that's true. But remember, Jesus teaches us through many different voices. And when Jesus sent people out to talk about him, he always sent them off in groups with other people. Even Jesus had 12 friends around him. Recovery is not solitary. Say that with me. Recovery is not solitary. Meetings are where we learn different things about recovery. We pick up these good tips. We get close to many people who will walk the road with us. There is safety in numbers. When we travel in packs, it's less easy to get picked off. Now, I've heard people say, and this is true, that it's hard to find 12-step recovery meetings. And now, granted, there are some issues with this. I mean, particularly addictions and compulsive behaviors sometimes can be easier to find 12-step meetings to attend with others who are walking that same road, right? There's a lot of them. And other issues, maybe like afflictions, can be harder to find 12-step meetings to attend. Here's the deal. Do your best not to discard any possibility of gathering with others for recovery. I'd suggest you get on the internet and Google. Just like you'd Google what to see at the movies tonight. Google, right? Google exists. Let's use it for our recovery. Do the best you can. Remember, it's your life at stake. And then don't just gather with your friends, but find others outside your inner band. That's how you're going to learn and grow. You know, there's some areas of the world where it's really, really hard to find 12-step meetings, and people still manage to find what they need. So don't argue that it can't be done. Make it happen. And then share with us. Come back and share with us where you found a new meeting so others who are in your situation can know where to go. Meeting makers make it. And finally, here's the number 5 essential. Say it with me. It's on the screen. Service. Do it. This is seriously important. You know, in recovery, we can't keep what we have until we give it away. So service made the top 5 essential list, right? Service gets us out of ourselves when we tend to be all kinds of self-absorbed, and it gives us a purpose. And when we don't feel like we have any purpose, and it's just a generally good, unselfish action to help others to grow in recovery, even when we don't feel like we have anything to give. You know, today you've already heard Champ talk about 2 ways to serve. One is to serve at the detox. One is to go into the jail, but there are simpler ways too. Right here at Choose Recovery, over at the welcome desk, there are these blue service cards. These are easy service opportunities to help CR happen. And when CR happens, people find recovery. So go over to the welcome desk when you leave here and pick up one of those cards and look at it. And then when you read something, you go, oh yeah, I can do that thing. Just fill it in on that date. There's a service chart on the welcome desk. Service keeps us generous, it keeps us giving, and choosing recovery means to choose a generous, giving life, just like Jesus is our generous and giving God. All of these 5 things are essentials to choose recovery. None of them by themselves will work. None is the answer in itself, even Jesus. Because when we trust Jesus, it is one essential, but Jesus gives us the other 4. When we don't work the other 4, we might wonder why Jesus didn't work for us. But he did. He gave us other essentials, and now it's our responsibility to work them. All of this together works perfectly in our recovery puzzle, and that's where we find hope and power. It's how Jesus comes alive in us. It's how we beat the system of having no choice. It's how our devastating weakness becomes our greatest strength. It's how we come to say, as Paul said about his weakness, say it with me again, 2 Corinthians 12:9. It's on the screen, go. But the Lord said, my grace is all you need. Only when you are weak can everything be done completely by my power. So I will gladly boast about my weaknesses. Then Christ's power can stay in me. Thank you. I want to invite the band to come up now, because now we've had our beach ball fun. We've had awesome music. We've learned what's to come as we choose recovery in 2019. And now there's only one thing left to do, and that's to actually choose recovery. I've asked Frank and some other people to come on up and put the Choose Recovery board up. This is a whiteboard, and it's up here because today is the day you can begin to overcome your devastating weakness, no matter what it is. Today is the day that you can make the choice that you can successfully make. Today you can choose to stop the fight. Stop fighting your weakness head on, which never works, and start being smart. Today is the day you can choose recovery. And all the practices that go along with a new way of life begin today. So there are some markers there. Come to the front, take a marker. They're erasable markers. Sign your name, draw a little picture, write a message on the whiteboard, whatever. Because today is the day to choose recovery. And going forward, this board is going to be right in front of the cafe when you come in, so that you can, every single time you come in, remember to choose recovery, to write a prayer on it, to write a prayer request, to write a glory sighting, to choose every single day. Recovery is a choice again and again. But today it's here, so come and use it. And then you can stay at the altar and pray if you want. We have a couple of people who can pray with you. If you need a prayer partner, just raise your hand. Recovery is one day at a time. Let it start today. Say, yeah.